Welcome to Causing Chaos, the Trouble Show. Part interview, part therapy, part shit show. I'm Emma Barry and we are chatting with troublemakers, risk takers and rule breakers. People with a healthy disregard for the status quo. People who choose a different path. Those who lean into their inner mischief and share the ruckus they are creating. It is my great hope that we ask the risque questions, play some games, drop some inspo on the world, and offer a masterclass in dialing up trouble for good. Let's go. So absolutely delighted, and I can't believe that we haven't spent time in the same room, but my guest today is Mark Fisher from Mark Fisher Fitness, MFF, for those New Yorkers who'll be familiar with the brand. He represents ridiculous humans, serious fitness. And I love this. When I looked on your website, it says, not for everyone. We're too zany for some. We don't love the gym either. That's why we created an enchanted ninja clubhouse of glory and dreams. I mean, don't you just love that? You are not going to go in there and have a normal experience, thank God.
No.
Why be a gym member when you can be a ninja? Mark, welcome to the show. It's wonderful to have you on. What's going on in New York City right now?
Oh gosh, it is an actual tundra right now. I'm sad to say it is a literal tundra. So it is truly everything is frozen. It is breathtakingly cold. I live actually right on the river in a area called Long Island City. So I'm like literally on the river. So it is truly Antarctic, but I don't care. It's New York and I like it. I like it when my master beats me. I deserve it.
Oh, look, that's awesome. Now, your reputation precedes you. So when I think of troublemaker, you were like right at the top of that list because pretty much everything you do, where you've come from, what you stand for, who you serve, has nothing about following the rules that exist in the world. And I love that. Tell us a bit about that. Why are you you?
Yeah. Yeah, well, the why are you part, I think certainly I seem to have been born with a certain number of eccentricities. And then I think, frankly, I found myself in this strange professional path where like a poorly behaved child, the worse I behaved, the more positive feedback I received, which unfortunately created more misbehavior, particularly in my corner of the world. And I'll just say briefly for context for people not familiar with Mark Fisher Fitness, we, in many ways, were kind of born out of the Broadway community. I myself was a professional stage actor for many years and then developed a niche working with Broadway performers who tend to be artists and tend to be eccentric and tended to like my style of, blue humor and profanity and strange imagery. And a lot of the thing that I've always been interested in is taking fitness, right? It's the whole thing, serious fitness, and trying to find ways to make it accessible and interesting to artists, to creatives, to people that I think broadly just don't feel particularly seen or spoken to by certainly, I think, a more conventional fitness outfit.
Yeah, that's great. And I actually rewatched, I'd watched it a while ago, but you did a great TEDx Broadway chat with your business partner
Oh
back in the,
yeah.
if anyone wants to get more of that backstory. And it really came from exactly that, eccentricities, feeling awkward and wanting to act out and then just going, screw it, I'm going to act out anyway. And then you accidentally opened a gym as kind of,
Yes. Yes.
spoiler alert.
Yes.
But what I loved in watching that was pretty much every traditional piece of it that you looked at, you turned it over and then you just added, glitter and unicorns and all of these things. What was the process? Was it truly surprising that you ended up opening a gym? And then what was the process of actually finding your way there? Like, why that? You could have gone and done, I don't know, self-development or sewing classes, or I don't know. Why that?
Yeah, I think one thing really just kind of led to another. I think it's a surprise to 16-year-old Mark Fisher in the multiverse that adult Mark went to open a gym. I think it's very confusing. And because I think, like most people, I maybe over anchor to the middle school version of myself. And there's actually been some really interesting social science research of late that is positing that people are maybe like overweighting actually their parents' impact on them. That in fact, a lot of your sense of who you are socially in your peer group around adolescence and early teenage years has a lot of impact on you. So I think to some extent, a lot of my like many human beings, but so I can't say that I was felt more awkward than other people. I think most people can feel a little bit othered at that time in their life, but that was somebody that, was not interested in sports, did not have very good feelings about my body or athleticism. That was just like not only not a happy thing, but that was the single thing that brought me the most anxiety and frankly shame at that point in my life. Like I can remember when I was 13 years old, 12 years old, I literally would not be able to sleep at night because I was just so embarrassed about my body. And listeners of a certain age will know this is an interesting thing because I'm basically as an old as or probably as young as a guy can be and still feel that, right? Because like my father's generation, my grandfather's generation, they were not nervous about abs, right? But I grew up my formative years as a little child in the 80s, seeing these action heroes and I really felt super crappy about my body, which, as we know, unfortunately, has always been the case, probably for the fairer sex. But for men, it's a relatively recent thing to feel that level of insecurity about one's body. I can remember being in high school. I remember I saw the movie The Full Monty, and I remember like crying, which is not that hard for me because I'm kind of a crier. But The Full Monty, if anyone remembers that movie, is the story of these sort of working class people in England who become strippers. And it really speaks like beautifully and movingly about male body insecurity. And that was a revelation. I'd never seen anything like that. Yeah. And, it's taken me, I've had a lot of time to unpack this over the years, but I think that's part of the lens with which I've always looked at fitness. And I've been interested in how do I create experiences for people where they have a relationship with their body that feels good and feels affirming. But importantly, I should also mention I'm also a nerd. So I'm also very interested in good fitness. And my academic background is pretty rigorous strength and conditioning, performance enhancement protocols, the places I think where rehab touches the personal trainer, who of course is not an actual clinician. And frankly, the impish part of me, the mischievous part of me, also was just so interested in taking the works of who I consider to be the legends, the greats, my mentors, the legends of strength and conditioning, and then taking it and then presenting it to the Broadway community with unicorns and glitter. And there's always been something about that juxtaposition of kettlebells and power lifters and iron and steel and great training, but also rainbows and pink and unicorns that has always felt fun to me. I think even and this is something interesting too, because MFF was founded in the early 2010s. And of course, society's changed in many, many ways. But even at that time, as to let listeners know who will be maybe shocked to hear, I'm actually married to a woman, but Eve, as a straight man who lived in a world of mostly gay men, as a member of the Broadway community, who founded a business with my best friend from high school, who happens to be a queer man. I also was always interested with playing with conceptions of masculinity that I didn't feel particularly related to me, that I maybe found a little bit limiting. And, and again, I have to give a lot of credit to the waters that I swam in, right? Because I think we're all impacted by the social communities we move in. And that has certainly changed, I think, as I've gone down the path of entrepreneurship. But at that time in my life, almost all of my male friends were gay men. And that I think is often a question people sort of ask. They're sort of like, particularly knowing me now, they're like, wait, why did you start like a gay gym? You started a gay gym. That's an interesting choice to have
Mardi
made.
Gras. It's Mardi Gras
Yeah,
all year
yeah.
long.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I was like all my friends, these are the people like I felt like comfortable with. These are the people that always were like kind to me and like took care of me and then like were the parts of the community where I felt seen and cared for. That's maybe beyond the scope of this conversation too. I do think I had to do like a little cleanup on aisle 7 of like my relationship around traditional straight guys and my, frankly, to be honest, in retrospect, maybe unfair judgments I'd put upon them as like, those guys aren't going to like me. My face moves too much. They don't even listen to musicals, right? And that softened a little bit, perhaps because I've found a community of sensitive new age guys here in New York City to all go to Burning Man together. But yeah, so I think that's a little bit context of how I accidentally started a gym.
That is so much context, and I don't even know where to start with the question. So, first of all, I absolutely get ridiculous and serious. So, you've kind of got that nerd, and then you've got in the way that you package it and present it. In your personal journey, were you always clear in who you were? Like you say, you were in a very fluid environment. It was presenting very gay because of all the musicals and all the
Yeah.
significance that go around that. Was that ever confusing for you, or was it just the fact that you loved or you grew to be able to fully express yourself in that environment? And therefore, that's where you could be more of you, right? It pulled you out, right?
I think that's absolutely it. Yeah, because because I can remember too. Well, this is some new novel content here, Emma. But I can remember too, even in my teens and in my early 20s, being like, should I be gay? Like everyone around
Right.
me
Yeah.
sort of, like this is a little bit unusual, but I will say this, there is a this we're getting very niche. There is actually like a story tradition of this unusual type of straight man that does musical theater, of which I would note there are a certain number of fringe benefits when you're dating in this particular community. And certainly I was fortunate to capture some of that upside as a young, still awkward person, but surrounded by these, really beautiful, interesting, dynamic women. But yeah, I have to say, like to answer your question, I'm like pretty far on the Kinsey spectrum as far as like I'm just like I do not have an interest in gay men. I think it's fantastic that people do. Obviously, like I'm super. If it's not clear on like the openness, the tolerance scale, I'm like a 15 out of 10. I'm like, everybody do whatever you want. I don't care. On some level, I almost wish I did because I'd have more maybe options. I mean, we've had some more adventures at this point in my life. But in practice, although that is not my own journey, it's always been because of my background, it's always been a space that I felt very comfortable in, right? Jokingly, even in my 20s, I can remember, this is so hilarious. There are literal like gay bars in New York City that I did not know were gay bars because it was just the place I always went to with all of my friends, right? It was a place I just felt so comfortable in and sort of cared for. So now I think the good news is the social acceptance of queer identifying people has completely transformed in the past 20 years. But even in around 2010, 2012, having like a drag queen teach a class in full beat was still considered unusual. I mean, well, it's still a little unusual now, but particularly that time, I think it was even edgier. Whereas drag queens, in a way that I personally think are damn wonderful, are you really become a part of mainstream America in a way that is like incredible, to the point where one of the things I do professionally, which we'll probably chat about some moment, is I work with gym owners to help them be more effective at running their businesses. And I don't mind telling you that tends to be a certain kind of cis straight white guy in that particular business. Not all, but many. And sure enough, I have been to drag bars. We had an event in Miami, and it was really moving for me and actually quite healing to bring these like 30 super muscular bro straight guys to this wonderful drag bar and to see them so game and loving and just getting completely played with by the drag queens and then being so down for it was really sort of beautiful. I was like, okay, I think we're not perfect as a society, but I don't know. I'm a humanist. I believe in the miracle possibility. I believe in human potential. And it was actually quite a moving experience to be like, oh, so these are all the guys that made me feel crappy about myself in high school. And now I'm synthesizing them with my high school friends and they're seeming like maybe we're gonna get somewhere as a world. Maybe we can move to a place of greater love and acceptance for the human race. So that's
Look,
my dream. I'm sticking to it.
yeah, look, I love it, and I think this is a really timely conversation that we're having, even though it feels like we're off script. There is no off script with the show, by
Right.
the way. We're
Yeah,
completely on
yeah.
script. But as a person, as a straight woman myself, but having been brought up on Oxford Street in Sydney, K Road in Auckland, hanging out with Boy George in the London club, like,
Sure,
and
sure.
again, it was that total expression and I guess a sense of safety, not just expression, but I knew who I was. Like when I go to a dance party, I go to dance. I'm not actually there
Yeah,
for the rest of it. So I
yeah,
think it's
yeah.
really striking a chord with me. And I think it's a fascinating conversation because, particularly if anyone's going through a questioning period or any of these things, I think you're just giving a real license for people to be okay with whatever it is and whoever you are. Which brings me to my next question, and it's sort of related. You mentioned, we're in those awkward times as we're growing up. We know, we just don't feel good about ourselves, whatever. It seems to be part of the human condition. No one seems to avoid that. But there is a
Right.
fork in the road. And what I observe, I've got, Gen Z kids, and I watch them going through this. How do I express myself? And there's this absolute pull to
Mm.
sameness. How do I fit in versus how do I stand out? I want to stand out, but then you go to, like, I went to Coachella, right? Took my daughter. they all think they're so special and different and unique, and they
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
They're wonderful little snowflakes. But then they're all standing there watching, whoever it is, and they've all got long hair. They're all wearing the shoes. They're all wearing the Vans. And you're like, which one's my daughter? Like, so in this
Right.
moment where you're trying to stand out, you're drawn. So, what would your advice be to people who, and we can have an awkward phase all through our lives, like the world's
Yeah,
on fire
yeah,
right now. I
for
think
sure. For
everyone's
sure.
questioning everything at this
Yes,
point.
yes.
How do you think we just take a step in a direction to find our true, fully expressed self?
Hmm. Yeah, wow, it's such a really great question. To be honest, I feel a little torn. I wonder if I'm, feeling maybe a little unqualified to answer because I think for better for worse, I have been maybe gifted and cursed with such a strong sense of self that I haven't really ever felt that I've ever had much of an option or frankly did a very good job outside of literally not talking and not moving my face, which I've come to accept is okay, but it's like a massive tell. It's like this guy's face moves a lot. Like I can remember going to like fitness conferences and my move was like, don't move your face. They don't move their faces there. People's faces don't move. They talk with their mouth and the faces don't move. So don't move your face. You'll fit in. They won't know. It'll be secret, you know? But as far as like that path, yeah, I think that, you also hit the nail on the head. My personal commitment and journey is to like to live the questions, to be like particularly pretentious, right? The journey sort of never done. I'm hopefully always evolving, unfolding, growing, changing. And I think the thing that maybe if I were to go back in time and coach myself or even coach a young person is to just accept that that's part of the human experience and to really make that okay and to make that normal and to also understand like it's all an experiment, right? Like life to me is one of the way I look at it. It's all an experiment. Marketing it's all an experiment. It's all test. Running a business, you try things and they work or they don't work. So I think that's the other piece of this is we often, I think, understand who we are in many cases by understanding who we're not, right? So when I think about things like even values, like if I'm coaching a business owner to think deeply about what they care about, what their standards of behavior that are important to them in their business, sometimes it's easier to locate it by identifying the things that they do not want, or the things that feel wrong, or the things that they look at and on some deep part of them, they just think like, we're better than this. Like the human race deserves more than this. Now, I would caution that's not necessarily to say that this other approach that one might have a reaction to is necessarily wrong per se, because I'm personally not in the camp of like throw rocks. I want to stand more for like common humanity and like the value and decency and inherent worth of all humans. But at the same time, I think it is appropriate to really identify your cup of tea. And sometimes you identify that by seeing the things that are not accurate. And sometimes that's trial and error, like there is a certain school of thought that one of the challenges that kids are maybe having these days, and certainly you can speak this better than I do, is my little one is, 19 months. So she's not playing these games yet. But, part of being a kid is like you try on different things. Like, and there's something uniquely, I can't remember where I can't attribute this. I know I saw this somewhere, somebody else said this, but there's something uniquely important and painful about trying on being an asshole, about trying on saying a flippant thing and sitting in the moment of realizing the pain you made somebody else feel. And I think that can be a very important experience that can encourage us to be a kinder, more thoughtful, provide more grace, more self-aware, more caring. And this is not the topic of today's conversation. Maybe offline, you can, coach me on how to think about this with my daughter. It strikes me that is like a concern when people are doing a lot of their socialization via screens and digital devices and broadcast methods where people are not able to see face to face. So, but I'm not the
Love
person to figure that out. Someone else is
that.
going to get that one figured out, and I will read their books and do what they tell me.
Yeah, look, I think you're more than qualified because really we're just coming from your experience. Just a question around your Broadway. So, would you say
Yeah.
that your experience, where you really have to explore the full kaleidoscope of all expression, do you think you got to play the villain and therefore understand that side of humanity, but without having to go out and actually be an asshole?
Yes. Yeah. So I will also say something that is pretentiously sounding, but I do feels true to me, which is that as an actor, you're studying the human condition. And I had the opportunity to experientially pretend what it was like to be a wide gamut of humans, right? Because that's what you do as an actor. You literally pretend that you're someone else, and then you imagine, okay, well, if I was this person, how might they behave? And I think there's two things that are valuable about that. Number one, you begin to understand that your emotional state, your beliefs about reality, about what things mean, are actually malleable. They don't often feel malleable, but they're actually malleable based on what you believe to be true. That is the foundation that creates whatever your experience is of the world, right? That's one piece. I think the second thing that is valuable is, yeah, it's sort of like, you know, another pretentious term is that actors are athletes of the heart. You're pretending to be other people. And I think even when you're being someone that is villainous, I think the only way into that is understanding that everybody from their point of view is the hero of their own story. Everybody's doing the best they can from where they are. And even if you can fairly objectively say they're doing shitty and what they're doing is unhelpful and not making the world a better place and unkind, unfair, whatever, that's still somebody that's like hurting, that's doing the best they can. They think that they are the protagonist. So I think all of that has been very, very, very helpful for me. And I think that that interest, even though I no longer, work as an actor, and that's not something I'm currently practicing, I'm just so interested in the human condition, right? And I think that like really pretending I was other people opened up the doorway, weirdly, for business, right? Because so much of business, so much of marketing, so much of leadership is understanding what someone else might be going through, have a theory of mind, and being empathetic and understanding what someone else might want, thinking in advance, how might this land with the team if I share this new thing? It's going to be changed, it's going to be difficult. Thinking, how might I phrase this particular email marketing copy with the words that my avatar is actually thinking so I can enter a conversation having in their head? So weirdly, I think that actually having a background as an actor was profoundly helpful to set me up as a business person, which is very weird, but I think
Yeah,
true.
no, 100% I can see that. And all roads can lead to Rome, right? So just to close off our rather long but very valuable preamble, just a question, my question number one for you, Mark. If you could give one piece of advice to your 10-year-old self, what would that be?
Oh, yeah, gosh. I mean, first, I just want to give myself like a hug. I was so anxious as a child. I do not, it's worked out great. I feel like I'm a very unusually happy person now, but I think just, I don't know, the way I looked at the world, I was not a particularly happy kid. So first, I'm going to give myself a hug. The second thing that I would love to tell my 10-year-old self to do is to just enjoy the journey, just enjoy the process, and to trust that you will find your people. You will find your people. And although you're longing, and I wouldn't have had those words at the time, but I think when I look back, frankly, I just don't think I identify with having a community. I love my family a lot. They're interesting. We're not super close. So I just felt in many ways, I think like I was floating in space because I hadn't found my soul friends yet. And yeah, I would just encourage myself, like your people are out there, like you'll find your humans and you have so much joy and love waiting for you and just like trust in the journey. Trust it's like the story's going to work out good for you.
I love that. That's awesome. We're going to shift gears into more of the business end. So we've sort of
Mm,
had a little bit of the part interview, part therapy, I would say as well. You're just dropping
yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
over the place. The theme of this chat actually is bringing your full fuck freakness into
Yes.
your work. So let's
Yes.
step in the doors of Mark Fisher Fitness and what am I going to feel that's different? Because you've talked about I want people to belong. There is no normal, anything goes. Like we're beginning to get a sense of the business, but how would it feel if I walked off the street in Midtown, I guess, and in your doors?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll tell you what I would want it to, knowing that like any business, we're certainly not perfect all the time. But I think the thing we most hear is that the energy is incredibly welcoming. So without getting too much in the weeds of how we really operationalize that, it's just things like if you're at the front desk, your SOP is you review the names of everyone coming in and you do your very best to greet everyone by name when they come in. You're looking at the names, you're looking at the photos. If there is a new person coming in that day, we want their name written with like a funny picture on the whiteboard. You want to have reviewed their goals. So you have an opportunity to connect with them and make it clear to them we care about you. We give a shit. We know that you're coming. We spent some time thinking about you in advance. We really want to make sure you have a great experience because to my mind, a lot of what we're looking to do is create SOPs for being a good host, right? I just want people to feel like welcomed when they walk in the door, which I think is a good best practice probably for any business. But I know particularly MFF, which as I mentioned, was born largely out of the Broadway community, which is living life as a parade of rejections and being told no. It was very important for me to have a space where, oh, people feel like, oh, I come here and people are happy to see me no matter what's going on with my day. If I come here, there will be like kind people that are excited to see me and will be human with me and will meet me where I'm at, a good day or bad day, and sort of help me take some time for myself. Certainly, the space I think is very visually colorful, and that's a piece of it too. But that's certainly the thing I think that we most want. I think there was one other thing that we often talk about creating at MFF is I want to create joy and confusion. I want to create joy and confusion. I want to interrupt the pattern. And this is sort of like hilarious. So business owners will appreciate this. We actually have like little like SOPs about these things. Like you do not sound like you're a law firm. The ultimate sin is to sound like you're Fisher and Fisher law firm, right? When you answer the phone, if I think you might be a law firm, something has gone wrong. Now, I would note this can actually be a challenge, right? Because there's a lot of wonderful people that are not that strange. And I think a constant calibration we have to do is having that person bring forth their warmest, most unique version themselves, but not feel like they need to be like 11 out of 10 fuck freaky if they're actually more like a 4 out of 10 fuck freaky. Like, that's okay. Just maybe bring a lunchbox from childhood. Maybe bring some stickers and give them to people. That's fine, because I think that is actually a challenge we've had over the years, right? Is sometimes people are like, oh, I'm going to try to be weird. And, authenticity is a little bit of a weird concept, right? I think as I've alluded to earlier in this conversation, I'm not so certain that we're all toasters. I think, in fact, that there's a wide variety of possibilities for all of us. But in practice, I think that's what you'll feel. And I think some of the ways we actually think about how do we make this a thing that is consistent for when people walk in the door, it's a feeling of warmth and love and a little bit weird to break you out of the pattern of whatever your day has been.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things coming up with this conversation, which is fascinating. One is I sort of feel like the Southwest, how do you get those person who
Yeah,
have personality? But if it's not authentic, if you're not funny and you're trying to crack jokes, that's also awful, So
totally, totally, totally.
I get it, but I love it. Sometimes there's more tangible things like stickers or just a thing you say, or
Yeah,
that's really
yeah,
quirky, keep that. I think that's interesting. And then the other thing is the very thing that you're trying to do, which is to create these warm arms and this belonging, could
yeah.
actually swing the other way because you're not weird enough. And so that becomes a judgment.
Yes. Yeah. And we do get, it's funny you mentioned, but I'm actually having a conversation next week with a longtime ninja who's like very upset because she wants things to be, because we used to go real far. We used to go far in ways that probably we can't get away with these days. And for her, she really liked it being super, super far. And that's absolutely not wrong. And, the brand has evolved a little bit. It's a different time. Quite frankly, it's a lot of the same people. And, we're 12 or 13 years older at this point. So we've changed a little bit. And also, it's not everyone's cup of tea to get the 25 out of 10 fuck freak every single time that they come in. So that's not to say that I'm dismissing her concerns. Of course, I do think I might need to do some expectation setting, that conversation around like what MFF is in 2024. But it is also true, this is an ongoing part of our conversation about, to your point, how do we balance being who you are in a way that feels good, that allows you to be human with somebody else, but also making sure that it's not like just a good fitness class, right? Because that's the other rut that, certainly we have fall into sometimes, is it's like, if it's just like a good fitness class and there's not something just a little bit of skill about it, then I think there's an opportunity to have some conversations about that. And certainly, for some people, they take this like a pig in shed. It's like they can't be normal, and that's great. But of course, those individuals sometimes are very hilariously challenging to wrangle to do the SOPs. So it
Yeah.
takes all kinds, I find.
Yeah, so look, this is a fascinating line for me because I'm juggling this every day right now. I
Mm,
personally, and I get that we're in sensitive times. I get that there have been whole cohorts, whole groups of people that have been passed over, offended, ignored.
hmm
The
hmm
privilege is
hmm
real. I get all of that. And I think we're becoming overly PC in the
Yeah.
sense I almost feel like you, I should have been locked up, well, would have been locked up today 10 times for stuff we've done in the past, I'm sure. And it was a load of fun back in the day. Go hard, go home, anything goes, good smack on the ass,
No,
good,
oh yeah, oh
good
yeah.
bit of sexism being thrown around, all the rest of it. And so while I don't condone that, I almost feel like you can't open your mouth without, getting in trouble. there's a thing like how far
Yeah.
is too far, and how do you, and it seems like it's the social conditioning thing. And when we had Me Too, we had all the sexism stuff, we had all the LGBTQIA,
Yeah.
all the don't judge me, we've got all the fat shaming. We're now at the point that we have normalized, and I will be controversial here, we're normalized obesity. Of course, some people have issues, I get it, but we're basically saying get as big as you want, die before your parents did, it's all fine, we've got medicine to keep, and don't judge me for being fat. And so I'm confused. That's where my confusion sits right now, because I feel as a humanity we've all also thrown out health metrics. Like if we're dying before our parents did, we're fucking something up, frankly.
Yeah.
And that's got nothing to do with how you look, how big you are, what sexuality, none of that. It's
Yep.
got to do with the fact that we are going backwards despite knowing more, having more, tools to help us, but not using them. So how do you walk that line? I mean, you've sort of said, hey, you're going to have this conversation with that person. Do you have a part of your business that still is, that this is the fuck freak part of the business, and it's going to be more normal, or does it need to be the same? Like, and that's sort of a business question for you as well. Are you creating
Yeah.
a franchise model, or are you saying, you know what, I'm going to give all our members what they need, and we're in personalized times, so that threshold's going to be a little varied?
Yeah. I mean, I do think it's definitely going to be a little varied. I think that we are definitely not franchised. We've definitely made a very strong decision that this is a beautiful, strange, unreproducible business. I mean, I think the plan is to have more locations in New York City, but this is not a brand I anticipate. I don't want to tone it down, right? To the extent I would need to. And by the way, like I also own a first of what will be many locations of another franchise concept of a different brand. So clearly, like I'm not against that as a business proposition. That's just not Mark Fisher Fitness. Mark Fisher Fitness is like my love letter to weird New Yorkers. I don't want to tone it down like all that much. And my general thinking on this is crudely, I always think, empathy is a good look, right? And if someone's saying, oh, this thing is hurting me and causing me pain, I'm going to tend to bias towards considering that very, very seriously. And these things exist on a spectrum, right? And there is a certain point where I'm comfortable saying, then this might not be the right place for you, right? So this is so hilarious. So, okay, so let's talk about, okay, what is this like when we train people? Okay, well, here's the thing. If you are doing a name game and you make everyone in the class go around the room and share, and this is a name game we've done, what is the strangest place that you've been in a threesome, right? Well, this could be a little confronting if some of the people in the class, we don't know, maybe even haven't had sex, right? Like, so now we're asking them to publicly do a thing that feels not cool. However, if this person is offended being in class when that trainer is sharing some really, I think, hilarious, but definitely
Risque.
crazy previous story of some crazy previous sexual tryst, this is probably not the right place, right? If a trainer, asks you to hold the dildo and stroke it, that feels a little bit weird. That's not very consenty. But if the mere presence of the dildo or the anal beads in the space is not right for you, then we know this is probably not the right fit, right? So hilariously, as you can tell, we've actually thought a lot about this over the years. And for me, a lot of it just comes down to like consent, right? If people can opt out of it, that's cool. But also, if just the mere presence of a lot of this sort of MFF-ism is not the right fit for them, then that's also like not the right fit. And that's okay. And we love you. We'll give your money back if we need. We know you might not feel comfortable here. Totally get it. We want to find you an amazing space for you. But here's another weird kind of nuance, right? Because some people, a lot of people, right, I think have come to understand they find a lot of stuff around sexuality to be confronting, right? And there are things like when I look back, I'm like, oh, okay, that was like maybe a little too far to assume everyone's going to be okay with that bit or whatever, right? It is also true, on the other hand, there's a certain amount of special subversive bonding that can happen. Oh God, okay, I guess we'll say this out loud, right? But if you're reading the room and you're in a small group personal training session, and I know I've got the right group of like four guys, I'm like, all right, go around the room. I want to know your name and how many dicks have you sucked in your life, right? And if it's the right room, this becomes this hilarious affirming of like sex positivity and a place where we can really like embrace like the fullness of who we are, and it's like a hilarious question. And I think to maybe end this, to go back to your first question, if you're playing with fire a little, like sometimes you're going to get burned, right? Like sometimes you might overstep. I think you need to be doing your best to be thoughtful and aware about these things. This requires a lot of emotional awareness. I think when in doubt with a lot of my team, I'm like, just like stay away from the things. If you're not sure, just like stay away from it. And if you can get away with it because you're just so like a lot of my shtick is frankly how I got away with it. And admittedly, I haven't taught many years, was there seemed to be this strange, like wholesome, motherly approach that was also sort of quite professorial. So if I'm going to make a bukkake joke, somehow it lands in a way that like it feels safe that I would do it. That if everyone's mom came to class, I'd look right in their face and I'd make the same joke and I'd smile, right? Whereas, I often joke like some of the people like over the years, and not so much, but I remember our early years, people would try to do some of like the really out there stick, and it would be like they're trying to jump over a cliff, and they would like get to the end of the, and they're trying to make a joke, and they're like, cool, and then and then at the end of class we'll get together and we'll have a gang bang, and you're just like, no, and they just can't get there. And they're just like, you see them falling in the cliff. Whereas when I would do it, I'd be like, I'm going to do a double somersault and land in a split with a flock of condors and fireworks behind me. I'm going so far that all of your mothers will feel comfortable. So at any rate, it is a thing we've thought a lot about over the years. And that's how we've sort of navigated that.
Yeah, and that's delivery. And, if not you, who? So I really do encourage you to keep, surfing that edge because,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and I know you will. But even the topic of personalization, we are all arriving at our, little stones that we need to look under and the little parts of ourselves that we've perhaps hidden or never stood up to.
Yes.
That whole
Yes.
journey is so multidimensional. And
Oh, yeah.
think about triggers, right? Like
Yeah.
fucking anything could trigger
Yeah.
anyone
Yeah.
at any
Yeah.
time. And so to actually have thought, but I think you've got that gift of delivery. And I tend to do it too. I'll go on a rant sometimes just on LinkedIn, and the shit I
Yeah.
say
I'm certain. I'm
is
certain. Yeah.
half conspiracy, half this, half
Yeah.
that. And you tend to get away with it because you sort of
And
do it
everyone's like,
so
Emma.
fast and
Yeah.
so funny. And then did she just say? And then you've moved on to the next thing, and you're just, I don't know, there's something about that. So I applaud you in that.
Yeah.
Please keep surfing the edge because if it's not you, so much of the world is so beige. It is so
Yeah.
unimpressive. It is so SOP to death. It is so PC. It drives me crazy. I recently did a big post on how I can't get employed anymore because I love most of the jobs, but I just can't do the shit. If I think it's a dumb idea, I'm going to tell you, not to be nasty, just because I can't
Yeah.
not put my truth. It's like I'm not going
Yeah.
to waste my time pushing some shit that
Yeah.
a load of bullshit. So I think we're all at that point. Our tolerance has gone down. I've got
Yeah.
another question for you. What would
Yeah.
you do, anything in the world, if you could get away with it?
Anything in the world if I get away with it. The only thing that I wouldn't do is something that I actually think there's an ethical and moral challenge with. And frankly, I think I can get away with anything that I don't think there's an ethical and like moral like thing. If there's not a thing against it, like, like steal money from my business partner, right? Well, I don't want to do that, right? But I think I don't even have like a filter, unfortunately. And I think this is like mostly work for me. I don't really have a filter of like if I don't think there's like an issue with it moral ethically, it's like, well, I don't care. It's sort of like the Elon Musk thing that like the only real laws are physics. Everything else is sort of suggestions. And of course, as you can kind of tell, there's like a mischievous part of me, perhaps to a fault at times, where even though I care very deeply about people and I can actually be quite sensitive and I want people to like me, there's almost like this useful lack of self-awareness sometimes where like if I see like the button, I just can't help but like press the buttons. I think there's a mischievous part of me. It's like that shouldn't be an issue, and I'm gonna do this thing. I want to press this thing, and certainly when I think this has happened a lot at, I think the more corporate fitness speaking events I've done, where I'm like kind of enjoying a little bit that people are getting a little bit uncomfortable. So I'm like showing pictures and talking about MFF, and believe me, like I don't relish people being off put by me, right? Like I remember giving a talk once in I think you might know our mutual friend Chris Stevenson, and it was at NURSA, right? So it was like URSA's Northeast event, very corporate, and like not a bad way, but like people wearing suits. I do a lot of talk with people in sweats, but these are suits people, not sweats people. So I'm talking to all the suits people, and I feel good. I give my talk. I can tell it's like there's a little bit of, but also like I'm like I got this. Like I'm comfortable in me. I feel good about this. And afterwards, Chris comes up to me. He's like, "Oh, gosh, it's so great, man. I wish I could be like that. You get up there and you're so polarizing. You're just so polarizing." And I was like, I am, because in my head, like I don't like I'm not trying to be polarizing. Like I really want people to like me. But also like, I don't know. I do think there's like a lack of useful self-awareness at sometimes that I'm just like, and also like a comfort in who I am, which I imagine is something we share that also allows people like you and me, frankly, to get away with more because we're so comfortable with it and are so open-hearted and like, kind and generous with like the things that people are like, what is going on? That there's a particularly perverse enjoyment I take in winning over crowds that I can tell are afraid of me at first. Like
Right.
that's like my favorite thing to watch them just slowly break them open. In the beginning, I can just feel they're like this guy, this like New York guy. He goes to Burning Man. He has this weird unicorn. I don't know, this guy, and just like slowly. And that's like kind of one of my shticks too when I speak, is I'm always thinking like I am going to like you against your will.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to like you against your will. My liking you is not conditional on you liking me. You do not have to like me, but I'm here to express my love for you, my care for you. I'm happy that I have you here. I hope you like me, but that's not in my control. But I like you because you're here. And this is going to be expression of my care for you. So buckle your seatbelt and let's have a fun time today.
I love that, and I love the Chris Stevenson reference as well. You know, the nicest, the little Energizer battery, right? Just lovely and
Yeah.
smiley and all that stuff. I met him. I remember when I met him for the first time. He's like, I know, I'm not 6'2". Like I look on the Zoom screen. I
He's
was
so
like,
great.
look, I hear you in all of that. Feedback. You are
Yeah.
famous in the way that your staff and maybe even the members, I don't know, or your ninjas,
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
how you develop feedback. Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about that because that is something critical. We don't like receiving
Yeah.
criticism or feedback. How do you do it in a way that gets the change, makes everyone feel
Mm,
whole and
mm.
honored?
Yes. Well, gosh, I mean, the first thing I have to say is I always need to acknowledge these conversations that, we're absolutely not perfect at it. I am sure right now there's someone on my team who's mad at somebody who's not saying it, but I think we have had an unusual amount of success in getting people to say the thing to the person that they're feeling a thing about. Now, admittedly, it's a little bit of a different dynamic with the clients. Clients, to some extent, are a little bit easier because I think as a best practice with the business, if you just like ask a lot and you ask in different ways, you ask informally, you ask in surveys, you just keep asking people what you think, and then you train your clients that feedback will be met with gratitude and not defensiveness. I think that becomes a very important way of understanding what's actually happening in your business. And of course, you still won't get everything because a lot of people are conflict averse. A lot of people are not going to tell you the things that they don't like, which is why, as a rule, if you hear something negative from a client, even if you disagree, I think the best way to train the clientele base is to be so appreciative of it, do all the customer service stuff, close the loop, let them know it happened. Even if you're not going to make the change, let them know why. So I think that's how we've approached it with clients. But admittedly, again, like I get it. Like your clients, you're giving us money, you love us, it's a gym, but like we're your gym that you pay money to. I think the team is very interesting. The team, I think, is where this gets interesting because my highest aspiration for MFF has always been like a school of life where we will learn skills. And in the process of serving something that's bigger than any of us, we will acquire skill sets and we will learn how to be a more effective human when inevitably we rub up our wounds and our kind of unhealed places against each other. And that learning the skill of how to have the conversation when you have a feeling about someone and doing it in a way that gives you proof that you do not have to choose between honesty and preserving the relationship, I think is the skill, right? Like that's the skill as far as I'm concerned in life is how do I, when I'm processing something, be able to share things that are hard for me to say, but also hear things that are hard for me to say. We always say like MFF, and this happily hasn't happened in a while. So I'm jinxing myself. It'll happen this week. I always say, you're in trouble when the person pulls out a paper. When the person pulls out a paper and they're going to read from a paper, which like that, and we don't mean to get maybe into all the weeds of the tactics, but I think that's one of the things, right? If I'm gonna have a conversation with someone, sometimes I need to clean it out. If I've realized I've got a story about somebody and I'm starting to, and leaders, you got to fix this. If you start thinking about somebody when you wake up in the morning, you have a problem. If when they walk in the door, there's some part of you that's not being fully human with them because now you're an obstacle in the way of what I want to have happen as the leader. I don't think you ever win like that, right? You can kind of command and control, but I don't know. I don't think that ever actually works out good. And it's probably not who you really want to be. And I think the way we learn and grow in businesses often is by just being human and being vulnerable. And there are some great frameworks for this. The book I always recommend is a great book. called Crucial Conversations, highly structured, right? It's like you start, here's what we both want, right? Here's the specific behaviors that I've seen. I feel like this, the impact of this. This is the story I'm making it to be about. What do you think? Because the final point I'll make on this is the thing that is so epic about this and so powerful is once you learn that your relationships will become stronger for having those conversations, you can get better at this like a skill. And listen, I am lucky in that I'm not actually a conflict averse person. Like I'm like a friendly guy, but if anything, to fault, I go sometimes too quick to like, this is not right. I need to talk about this. Let's fix this. I've had to learn actually sometimes I got to let it settle a little bit because some people are opposite, right? And that's like confronting. And when you're in the power position, it's even more a thing you have to be thoughtful about because there's going to be certain amount of power dynamics I think one needs to be conscious of. So essentially at MFF, we have done, and even just today, we had a meeting before this where, we're in a leadership meeting and the details don't really matter, but we were working on a project and I sort of said, my fitness director was like, oh, I think you need to handle this thing. And what I love is this is somebody I've known for 20 years. They've been on the team for a long time. And such a great testament of their growth is they would say, if they were not here, they're not somebody that's historically been comfortable with conflict. Just like, I want to say, I feel frustrated. I feel like this was getting put on me. I know no one meant anything wrong, but now I feel like this thing is getting put on my plate that I didn't get an opportunity to weigh in on. And again, everyone's like, thank you, because this is the other thing too. It's like the monsters under the closet and under the bed, they don't get that big if you just take care of the monster while it's a little monster. Don't wait until you got these barnacles built up. And I see this happen a lot with leaders. And Lord knows I've done it in my life. So I'm not trying to be Judge Judy over here, but where you don't say the thing and all these small things keep adding up. And then you have this disproportionate reaction over something that the other person is like, well, that's not even that big a deal. And they're right because you weren't having the conversations all the while to stay, like I call it, like staying clean. I want to stay clean with my people, right? And again, I think any organization, you have to understand as the leader, you have to provide some grace for the people working with you. Like you're never going to get the whole story. It's always going to be scarier for them than for you as the leader. But I think the more any business creates the type of culture where people do not have the back channel conversations or the meetings after the meetings, and they just say the thing to the person to the face, I think the better off you get. And maybe you won't get 100% there, but the healthier those relationships are, the better everybody feels. And in a service business, that matters, number one. And number two, the better your thinking is because you're getting the benefit of everyone's best thinking because people aren't holding back about what they really think about an idea to spare someone else's feelings.
I love that. And, not only the relationship with the person improves, your relationship with yourself improves because
Yes.
you're not hiding things and tucking and pushing
Yes.
down and, creating, and the story just changes, right? And you somehow end up over here.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's like, it's so cliche, but it's really all the things that you can't say out loud hold the power, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about one of the themes of this conversation too, are like the unexplored parts of you. That's why I'm so interested in like shadow work. It's like one of my mentors, Ari Weinswig, always says, when you get furious, and I got a temper, I got to tell you, I got a real temper, get curious. Why are you so mad about this, right? You're having a trigger, you're having this like unconscious thing. There's something that I don't know. There's something unclear to me. There's something that I haven't dealt with. It's often humbling to realize, oh, that bothers me so much when my wife talks so fast and cuts me off and snaps at me before I have time to think, because I do that sometimes because I am so fast that I am getting slightly impatient with other people. And this is what it feels like. And it doesn't feel
Right.
good. And it makes me particularly upset because on some level, I know that's what I do. Shit.
Yeah, love it. Last business question, rapid fire, and we are out.
Mm. Yep.
So, the guy full of rainbows and glitter and unicorns, surely you can't be making any money and be very good at numbers. What would you say to that?
Oh, business is the game of numbers. Yeah, I'll say keep it brief. Like that's the language of business is numbers, right? And it's not just money. And ultimately, listen, I'm all about also the mission and values in Unicorn and Rainbow. That stuff matters too. But just like you can't have a human that is going to thrive by just paying attention to the arts and meeting conversations if they're not eating food and breathing air. If you run a business, you have to get serious about the numbers. And that was a thing that it took me a while to get around. I think I overcompensated by being so good at frankly, like the delivery and the values and all that stuff, that I had a lot of time to fumble my way around. But for me, also, business is only fun if it's a game and you keep score by the numbers. It's not the only thing, but it is a thing. So I think we all got to get serious about this in the event somebody's listening and thinking they can stick their head in their sand about their numbers. It's not going to go well for you.
There'll be no
You can do
rainbows
it.
if the doors are closed. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
I
And by
love
the way,
it.
it's like fifth grade math, Mothi. It's fifth grade math. You were bad at in fifth grade, but you probably were also a bad driver, and you probably were. I was going to say bad in fifth grade, but I'm not going to say that because that would be completely ridiculous.
Don't do that. That's
But
completely
you get better.
inappropriate.
You get better at things when you get older, right? So if that's a limiting belief, I love you so much. I want to elbow chicken wing that limiting belief.
Oh, that's great. 5 rapid fire questions. Bungee jump or swimming with the sharks?
Swimming with the sharks.
Good. Streaking at a major sporting event or skinny dipping in a public fountain?
Skinny up in a public fountain.
Nice. Eating a live bug or consuming the world's spiciest chili pepper?
Oh, maybe I'd hate to say the live bug. I don't want to, but
Would you rather share your deepest, darkest secret on live TV or confess a crime to the police?
I think probably, yeah, it's like deepest, darkest secret on TV. It's like,
Are
yeah,
there
I
any?
got none. Yeah, I'll tell you. Yeah, what do you want to know?
Crazy night on tequila or unforgettable journey on shrooms?
Oh yeah, shrooms. Shrooms all day, every day.
Yeah. Beth was the same. Beth is giving you your question for the day, which is if you were an animal, which one would it be and why?
Yeah, so the one that's coming to mind weirdly is a greyhound. I often refer to myself as a greyhound because I'm just like fast. I'm just like go, 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 go. Utterly too fault at times. Apologies to everybody in the entire world that's ever spending time with me. But yeah, I feel like I'm like a greyhound. I was born to sprint.
Love it. I love it. Do you have any final thoughts for our audience? If there's one thing you want them to walk away with, what would that be?
Oh gosh. I just want to say, like, we're wearing a meat suit on like a rock flying in outer space, and like your life is just so short. Like I don't want to sound like morbid, but like it's almost over already. Like there's no, just do the thing, live the thing, feel all of it. Your life is so short. And I would just encourage everyone to be broadly. I think it's always good advice to be intentional about how you're spending your wild and precious life, as the poet says.
I love it. Mark, this has been incredible. Where do we find you? Is there any help or any shameless plugs you want to give about what you're up to and how we can be a part of that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, certainly for anybody that is involved in the fitness industry and likes business of fitness stuff, they can go to businessforunicorns.com or follow us at Business for Unicorns on Instagram. If people are interested in checking out Mark Fisher Fitness, they can go to markfisherfitness.com. And you're welcome to find me on Instagram, where I will mostly repost stories of my adorable daughter that my wife tags me in. I am at Mark Fisher Human Being. I don't post a ton there. Business for Unicorns is the place for my posting. But if you want to DM me there, I would love to connect with you further.
Look, thank you. I just think this has gone exactly where I thought it might, but it's been so much more. And I thank you just for the service that you have the world. You know, you show us your dialogue is so unique. And I think you've just opened up so many hearts and minds and really created a home for people to be in. You've certainly changed the way that I think about things. So I thank you for that. And then my last thing for you is what is your question for another guest?
Oh yeah. So actually, this is something I'm always so curious to know is if this guest had to start over in a profession unrelated to anything they've done to date professionally, because many people have multiple careers now, I'm curious, what else would they be interested in doing if they had to start all over today, or there's an alternate reality where they can't do anything that they've done professionally to date? What else might they be spending their life doing to make money and probably pursue as a calling and a passion?
I love that. I love that. Mark, thank you so much. Truly gold, golden, golden, golden. I just feel like I know you a lot more and I love
Oh
what
my
you're
gosh.
keep going. Keep going.
I just think you're a legend. I cannot believe it took this long to get together. You're so clearly my people. Thank you for this opportunity to nerd out. Thank you for providing a safe space for me to bounce off the rubber walls like an absolute Looney Tune and feel like, oh, I can just full market here. I feel like always full mark, but you got full mark today.
Thank you so much. Have a great week. Love to your family, your daughter, all of the things. And yeah, hopefully I will meet you sometime.
Yeah, I believe we will do it one of these days.
Okay. Thank
Awesome.
you. I hope you took a trouble tip from this episode. If so, ring the bell, like it, follow it, and share it. But most importantly, put the lessons into action in your life, in what you do. Remember, you are the beacon of hope. You are somebody's hero. So ignite that spark within, fly in the face of normality, put your spin on things, follow the call of the disco ball, and solve new problems. I love you. Now go stir up some trouble.